Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Weird Science, directed by John Hughes, Sideways by Alexander Payne, Creed by Ryan Coogler, Creed 2 by Stephen Caple Jr., and finally, newly released Creed 3, directed by Michael B. Jordan. It's going to be a great show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay for me. How was your week of movies, man?
Week was good, actually. I actually really enjoyed this week. Also had a little bit of runway with us posting their specials, so that's always nice. You know? I have a moment to breathe.
I'm definitely excited to hear. I'm glad we hit all three Creeds.
Yes.
And kind of excited to hear them when I was putting them on, getting ready for the site. I was kind of starting to get a little interested in what you thought about these.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting going through them because, honestly, for me, I've seen the Rockies. It's not something I'm like super nostalgic over.
We're both not, yeah.
Yeah. I like Stallone enough, but for me, it's in my brain. It's always been, I like Raging Bull. I don't really need to. To like the Rockies. But when it comes to Creed, it was an interesting dive. And I'm definitely happy I watched all three because I really do have opinions on all three.
That's good. So. Yeah. No, I think the three makes sense.
Yeah.
First, we got some homework to do first. So it was Oscar Sunday. This past weekend. So I don't think you had said just before we started you don't have many notes.
Yeah,
I don't have many notes on it.
Yeah.
I'll start and then you can finish.
Sure.
I'm not surprised by any of it.
Okay.
I think it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I don't know if was it Michelle Yeoh?
Yes.
I don't know if she deserved that.
Sure.
I don't think it deserved Best Picture either. I don't think.
Really? Okay.
So I watched Everything Everywhere after you did,
Yep.
so I didn't have much commentary on it. Really liked it. Thought it was one of the best films of the year.
Sure.
But the best film? No. I mean, for both of us, that was...
All Quiet.
Which won some stuff.
Yeah,
and
won international at least.
Yes.
So.
And not small stuff, film editing, I believe, too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and won
some
a couple
production
others.
stuff, yep.
Which is nice to see. You know, women talking, adapt the screenplay. It's like, of course, okay.
Sure. Right.
I'm not surprised at that. But otherwise, I wasn't upset by anything. I was happy to see Brendan Fraser.
Yep.
I always forget his name, but the guy, Short Round, the one who won Best Supporting for Everything Everywhere.
Right. And a very emotional speech as well.
He's phenomenal. Even his backstage stuff with Brendan Fraser was adorable. So it was not...
Apparently they were in a movie too. I didn't know what movie.
Very early on.
Yeah.
Early on. Did you watch it?
No. I mean, I watched, well, actually, let me say this. I watched probably first 2 hours through, and then I turned it off, and I was just like,
2 hours is pretty, well, how long was it? 3.5?
Yeah, I think it was like 3:45 or something like that.
All right, so what is your, my impression was not as bad as other, years.
Yeah.
But then again,
Kimmel wasn't too terrible. I really don't like Jimmy Kimmel, but
you're right.
Yeah, he wasn't like it wasn't cringy or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
I don't feel like it wasn't a great year for film.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much to like. It's like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Everything went to Everything Everywhere. All right, that's not the worst thing.
Yeah, my notes are prop to Del Toro for Pinocchio and beating out Pixar.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, anytime that Pixar loses at the Oscars, it's a good day. So, props to Michelle Yeoh. I mean, I agree. I think even going back to our Year of special, us talking about it. I mean, she really wasn't on the radar. But she was
good, but not deserving of it.
Yeah, I think that was one of those wins where it was like maybe a little overdue, just because Michelle Yeoh does have such a tremendous career in kung fu movies and physical performances and whatnot.
You say overdue. Did Cate Blanchett even win one yet?
I don't know. Well, if that's not the case, I actually don't know.
You know what I mean? Talk about paying dues. Yeah.
Let's pay some dues. And of course, props to our boy, our big boy, Brendan Fraser.
He's so. I'm just like, that's who you want to. You want that kind of guy in Hollywood.
Yeah,
unbelievably nice. Everyone has such great things to say about him.
Absolutely.
So some good people won for sure.
Yeah. I think the only thing, I think when I might have turned it off was Jamie Lee Curtis's acceptance speech, where she was going on about like, this is for everyone, and then she goes on to thank the people in her lives. It's just like, all right, well, the Oscar isn't for everyone if you're saying then like it's for you.
I didn't watch much of it, honestly. I mean, even Brendan Fraser, he was just so overwhelmed. I think he just had to get out something. When he was backstage, the reporter that was with him was just like, I don't know if you knew exactly what you said, and he was just like, no, like he was just totally in a cloud. Yeah, it was. I actually really liked Best Supporting Actor. What is his name?
So isn't it something Key?
Yes.
Key something?
Anyway, him.
No, we got to look it up now. This is too much.
His speech I thought was the best. It was just, I don't know. He stayed away from topical things, and it was just pure from the heart. Just a lot of love, a lot of joy, and it was like, that was so nice to see.
Yeah, I love that he called out his mom. Like, I mean, it was just great.
Super sweet, like the sweetest little guy.
Yeah.
I thought I killed enough time for you.
I know. Well, I had the airplane mode on. Just give me the cast. Just give me the cast. Ki Huan Kwa.
Let me take a crack at it?
Yeah.
Okay, we have Ke-Hu Kwan. Ke-Hu Kwan. Ke-Hu Kwan. Just say it fast. Like, Worcestershire sauce. You gotta say it fast. Anyway, great speech.
Great speech.
And he was definitely my favorite of the night.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I don't know. It was, it was the Oscars. We don't really care too much.
Exactly. And that's, even though we talk about it a fair amount, I feel like year after year, my hype for it really dwindles.
Yeah, you and I talk about it. We didn't talk about it at all last year.
Sure.
Like, in between us, it's just like, whatever. Because it is a joke.
And I feel like
Women
by March,
Talking wins Best Screenplay. Coda wins last year for Best Picture.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's a joke.
What are we doing here?
Right. I just feel like, I don't know. This is even going back pre-podcast. I feel like by March, the previous year's so in the back of my head already.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of don't care if they win or they don't anymore. You know what I mean? But
I wish All Quiet. I mean, there weren't many other awards for All Quiet to win other than Best Picture, as far as like what the movie was. It deserved to win Best Picture.
Sure.
I don't know if that's Netflix hate. I don't know if it's just a big deal because minority stuff with All Quiet.
Yep.
I'm not All Quiet. I mean, Everything Everywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, props to Del Toro. You're right about that.
Oh,
I forgot about that. It was
absolutely.
It wasn't the biggest competition, let's be honest.
Well, I was actually happy to see Sea Beast was nominated.
And Puss in Boots.
Yeah.
I was happy to see both of those.
So, but animation is one of those things why I really do. I love Pixar, don't get me wrong.
I totally know what you mean.
But Pixar is just such a given win that I like spreading the love a little bit.
Yeah, it's like if Meryl Streep's nominated. It's like, forget about it.
Forget about it.
Okay, all right, that's enough That's our Oscar wrap-up. We suggest you really go to the award show that really matters, which is the Tom Dailies that we recorded a while back. You don't have to wait 3 months into the next year.
Right.
Okay, so let's start this week. We are continuing our John Hughes, our second to last John Hughes film, your film study that you're doing. He is directing this and writing. This is Weird Science. You were kind of excited for this one. We'll see how it kind of held up. A lot of names that we recognize in this.
Yeah.
We're in 1985. How was Weird Science?
So Weird Science, I feel like didn't live up to what I remembered it to be, but still was pretty good.
Okay.
And still, I think, an important piece in the Hughes study. Tom, you and I obviously saw our buddy producer Sean over the weekend, and he actually told me he was watching along with the film study, which brought me a lot of genuine joy. So I wanted to, even though I put Hughes on kind of the back burner a little bit, I wanted to return to this. So he's paying attention. So we're back with John Hughes. He is losing his favorite actress, Molly Ringwald. She is missing from the production. He does continue with Anthony Michael Hall, though, in his usual kind of nerd typecasting and getting older as well. Something to note with all these films is that it really happens year after year. So you're kind of seeing these kids grow up, which is kind of interesting. And notable for the study, you can really feel a big bump in production budget. The music is a perfect example of this. We evolved from something like where it's in Pretty in Pink, kind of some new wave deep cuts of the time, to now there are full-on bands like Van Halen and Danny Elfman's Oingo Boingo as well. I mean, this is a huge bump in production from all three previous films. So, story-wise, it's real simple. Two nerds, played by Anthony Michael Hall and Ilian Mitchell-Smith. They build their own Frankenstein's monster, and that monster happens to be a smoking hot supermodel. That's basically it. They name her Lisa, and while she starts as their kind of horny desire as teenage boys, she quickly grows to be a motherly figure, kind of guiding them to grow up as gentlemen. Though it kind of seems like a much raunchier premise, it still has that heart that John Hughes is able to clock in.
Yeah. Family friendly, but also, like you said, he can be rated R sometimes.
Oh,
he have a lot of language. Yeah.
How this film is not rated R is insane to me. Yeah, it is insane to me. I kind of have some problems with just the disbelief of this film. The Frankenstein aspect is used fully, because there's really nothing to explain the weird science besides a freak lightning storm. This, really is basically a raunchy Disney Channel movie. I was really getting Smart House vibes coming out of this. Kind of coming to mind for some reason.
I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah. It's definitely a cleanup after a party at the end. It's So and obviously, Smart House ripping off, I guess, weird science. Kelly LeBrock is playing Lisa, and she has just complete superpowers over reality around her, from creating cars to changing people's anatomy to, she's really like a genie. The concept of the Frankenstein's monster really gets lost in the shuffle as it goes from Frankenstein to just all-powerful genie. It's really odd why they went with this in this film. I mean, Tom, I'm not kidding you. She has control over everything. If I had to place Lisa from Weird Science in a ranking of most powerful, she's like right next to Dr. Manhattan or something.
I thought you were going to say Thanos.
yeah. More than Thanos. More with all the Infinity Stones. But it's nonsensical. It's designed to be nonsensical.
Sure, yeah.
But, it's something I had to note because I don't know. I felt like there was a lot more care in Hughes's other scripts, and this just felt so loosey-goosey to it. So, like nearly all of these stories, the final destination is a crazy, wild high school party, and here that is just supercharged by Lisa's near omnipotent powers. So it gets really crazy. And that's, again, where this production budget is coming into play. This movie has some hysterical tech. I'll give it some points for being cute, but I was straight up laughing at the film sometimes. I was really laughing at the film. Building Lisa in this program is like beyond nonsense, and really wears its 80s-ness on its sleeve. Like, no one understands computers to begin with, so they could have gotten away with this.
Right.
They the hacking is a joke. The hacking, it looks like something out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, he's going into like this like trippy mainframe, and then just ridiculous things. Like, they scan a photo of Albert Einstein to give her IQ. It's just a photo. It's not like a biography or anything like that. There's no content.
I love it. I know. I love it. Though.
Yeah. It's a fun time. It's also a little bit just like nothing for that reason as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if this 80s charm isn't really like working for you, this stuff could just be, exactly, throwaway. Yeah. So, I also have no clue how this movie is PG-13. There is plenty to knock it up to rated R. Most notably, a lot of nudity. There's magazines and everything lying around, and you just see it all. I just really don't understand how this shit flies under the radar. I think it's just because
we're in the mid 80s and we're still just kind of getting the rating system down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back then there wasn't, like for the MPAA, there wasn't a description of why it got the rating. It was just the rating.
Yeah.
I don't know. The rating process, I think, started after 62 or something like that. But it was very, very weird up until I would say the mid to late 80s. And that's when it got formalized.
When they dial it in.
That's why you look at Jaws rating or something like that, which is crazy. Point. I mean, Jaws, I think, has a PG. I think we brought it up before in the show. So I still think we're just in a certain type of thing. I think it also has to do because it's kid-based. Yeah. It's teenage-based.
So they just kind of assume it's going to be teenage safe.
Yeah. Exactly right. The MPA quite didn't have their exact regiment. You know what I mean? Like today, if you're PG-13, okay, you can have 2 F words, and pretty much after that, okay, we know you're in the rated R thing. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can get away with a lot more back then.
Yeah, for real. And this movie's a perfect example of that. Some notable side performances, Bill Paxton and Robert Downey Jr. They're not a duo, but they're both equally great as kind of like bully characters. It's also, I don't know why, it's so surreal for me to see Robert Downey Jr. now in like anything. I mean, I have Chaplin and a few of his other films on my list, floated around somewhere, but man, let me tell you, I really cannot separate him from Marvel and his whole persona, his whole, jujitsu persona now. And
I definitely see him as, like, are you saying you see him as 2 different people, basically? You cannot not see Iron Man when you watch Weird Science.
Yes, I can't unsee Iron Man.
That kind of makes sense. He's young in this, right?
Oh, yeah, very young.
Because he does, in the late 80s, he does Glory, right, with Cuba Gooding.
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he has a string of
bigger films. Yeah,
absolutely.
Before he then gets into the drugs and everything like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Bill Paxton is a psycho in this film, correct?
Yeah, he plays like this weird, like military older brother. Honestly, great though. I mean, both are just like total assholes, and just it really is a good bully for the film. So, and boy, oh boy, John Hughes, boy, does he love his endings. He loves that razzle dazzle. No spoilers, but I really felt that this was the starting blueprint for Ferris Bueller. Just like Ducky from Pretty in Pink, I felt Hughes was dialing in what works more and more. You can see this in simple things like glances to the camera for kind of a little joke or a little bit nod to the audience.
Right, yeah.
But even how he structures the last 20 minutes around having fun again after the emotional beats, I really feel like Hughes is just more and more, he's just dialing in what works until he gets probably a flawless formula that he'll continue into the 90s with, with Home Alone, Flubber,
right.
Beethoven, basically. So
yeah, Beethoven, yeah.
He does all the Beethovens, too. The John Hughes Project, it gives me plenty of Easter eggs. I keep on looking back just to make sure I'm watching in the right order and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
I think we can skip the Beethovens, though.
What are you talking about? Beethoven? No.
I think we'll cap it with Flubber.
Yeah. I might not be too hot on any of these films so far, folks, but Hughes knows what he is doing, and it's been wonderful seeing that progress. His formula, it just knows what is successful, what works, also what works for a younger demographic, which is something that not all directors can say, being out of touch with that. Weird Science is a lot more raunchy and simplistic than anything we've covered so far, but still, I think it could be a watch to spot these filmmaking trends and how just iconic but also skillful they are with Hughes behind the camera and penning the script. We're going to go ahead and give Weird Science a 54.
Ooh, okay, 54.
Yeah, not stellar.
Yeah, not electric in any way, I guess, really. Who is this audience?
I mean, besides Lisa's electric fabrication powers that she can make a Ferrari and a Porsche and alter reality.
And it's a snappy film. It's an hour and 34.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It really wasn't a slog to get through.
Who would this film be for?
The thing is, even with like 16 Candles, I could say like it's fits into like a Superbad formula.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, Weird Science is just like, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like a party movie, high school party movie. I don't know if you really like Kelly LeBrock or, you're really dying to see her in her prime or I don't know. But
I know, you just never really hear people are big Weird Science fans.
Yeah. Right. So that's where I feel like its use case is only in, or its watch case, use case. Its watch case is really only in studying John Hughes and seeing that progression.
Right. Okay, so 85, Weird Science with the 54. We're going to jump ahead to 2004, and I'll tell you what, this film...
Left field.
Yes and no. Well, it was out of left field of why we're doing it. But,
yeah.
But actually, it was... So this is actually have been on my list, mine and Andrea's list. Yes, and then we watched the trailer, and it's just like, it looks good. I don't know about the film quality. It gets kind of good reviews, but blah, blah, blah. Highly awarded.
Oh.
Nominated for a lot. I couldn't believe when I was, again, doing the research on it.
It's unbelievable.
How well this movie performed. We're in 2004. This is Sideways.
Yeah.
And I definitely think delve into this a little bit more. I don't think a lot of the producers and the people listening, it might not be really on the radar or ring any bells, honestly.
Even going back to 2004, it's like, well, where the hell is this movie?
I don't feel like I've heard about this film until last year, honestly. Yeah.
So, this was a new dive for me as well. You don't see me going back to early 2000s too often, no less for a comedy from early 2000s. But Sideways is a bit of an anomaly. Alexander Payne is the director, and I've really never touched anything of his. He's had a long career of films that hit on a very creative approach to comedy and drama. Sideways is even further an outlier, as it won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay and was nominated for 4 additional categories, including Best Picture.
I know. Best Motion Picture, Best Performance by Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Actress in a Supporting Role, and Best Achievement in Directing.
Yeah.
Alexander Payne was nominated for.
It's unreal. You take a peek at the Metacritic and the Tomatoes, it's 90 plus. So I was kind of going into this and saying, okay, how is this distinguishing itself from any other rom-com, no less rom-coms of the early 2000s, which were, blowing up as much as horror is blowing up now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, right. And not only it won, like, it was nominated for 7 Golden Globes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was not just the Oscars too. I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
This film. Yeah. And it did unbelievably well. I think I believe the budget was $16 million, and it made about 110.
Whoa,
something around that.
That's a
like
turnaround.
106, 110.
Wow.
So did very well, like, super well.
Giamatti got a big payday. So.
But the difficult part is when you're stepping into it now, you got the hype behind it.
Bingo. Bingo.
It's 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And why don't you get into it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that unfortunately is where I was a little tainted with this one because it had such a hype. I kind of fell victim to a little bit of overhype for it. Sideways focuses on a bachelor trip to California wine country, and right off the bat, that premise sounds a little bit lame, if you ask me. But that's also kind of the point. It's only a party of 2 at the start. It's Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, who I will always know as Sandman, just because he's Sandman, you know what I mean?
I mean, what movie is it?
Yeah, Spider-Man 3.
Oh, he's Sandman in Spider-Man 3? I barely know Spider-Man 3.
Oh, okay.
I know
Probably
him
for the best,
every time when I see Thomas Hayden Church, I just think of Ursula. Because I picture him in George of the Jungle.
That's
right. Because he's the bad guy in George of the Jungle.
Of course. How could I forget George of the Jungle?
But, hey, he won, he was nominated for supporting actor here. So.
Yeah, right.
Which is crazy.
And oddly enough, not Giamatti, which is crazy.
I know, yeah.
So when they go on this bachelor trip, they're kind of playing guys a little bit past their prime. So we see each of them get some romantic interests, and we see them stumble in opposite ways with this. This brings in Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen in 2 equally great performances. I really got to give credit to all 4 of these actors and actresses. It was really a tight cast, and they all played off each other very nicely, and especially with how demanding this script was, which we'll get into a little bit. But as Giamatti kind of drunkenly flounders his love interest, Church steps into some hot water and really derails the whole trip, and that's basically our setup for Sideways.
Okay.
So I can say this much: if you love Giamatti, this is probably required watching, honestly. He's so iconic in this. And,
it's one reason why we want to watch it, really. Yeah.
In a really good way. Giamatti is spineless and cowardly in almost an effortless way. Like it really comes, naturally here. And depressed to boot in this film. A true loser, a stick in the mud, self-described, but earns your attention in the film by a great performance. And not saying that it's so hard to play a, down in the dumps guy, but Giamatti really bakes a lot into the performance here. And that's, again, plays into my surprise that with all of the critical praise here, him being the main lead out of the four.
Yeah.
How, was it just a lot of competition that year? I have no idea. So, just surprising. I could imagine someone watching this and getting a little bit of annoyed with his character, but again, the nuances that he brings to the performances will win you over by the end. He's also a massive nerd about wine, and like all nerds, are completely clueless in every other social and romantic situation around, anything that's not to do with wine or what he's interested in. So I think my favorite quote from him, wait, let me see this here. My favorite quote from him is describing wine as quaffable but not transcendent. It's like, what? It's just so like doubled over up his own ass with that. It's ridiculous. I really think a lot of the dialogue in the script works just how I was praising the critic characters from the menu in that.
Oh, sure.
You don't even have to be into wine. You don't even have to kind of even get what they say. You just know that certain things are so up their own ass.
Right,
that
right.
Yeah, it's funny for that reason. So, and let me say, as far as kind of a wine enthusiast film goes, it's pretty authentic. Most is just kind of poking fun at a lot of pompous attitudes around, wine country and, things like that. Through this approach, it also achieves a very authentic, very real approach to being about wine. My note here and my thought for the entire film is it's beyond sommelier. Like it's beyond being about wine. This is the wine enthusiast film of all time, basically.
I think we should. So I'm starting to think that we should try to find wine enthusiast films.
Okay.
One of them is Bottle Shock, which is kind of an earlier on Chris Pine.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
And oh my gosh, Professor Snape.
Alan Rickman.
Yes, he's also in it.
Yeah.
So, and I think I kind of enjoyed that film as well. And I feel like there might be this genre of wine films that might be really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Somm is one of my favorite documentaries I've watched in a long time.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that the one where it's like the fake wine or something like that? It's the...
No, that's it. Another great one, actually.
Oh.
That's another great documentary of forgery wine.
Yes,
That's not Somm, but yeah. I don't know. I think there might be...
That's a compilation,
Like a very mini subgenre. Just like how we say, well, it's funny that we're pairing with boxing movies, but how boxing movies always seem to be kind of good.
Oh,
or like
sure.
When they're around, people like them.
Yep.
I think we might have something in the wine category too.
Wine category. Well, this is also in like our secret food movies, Big Night, Pig, things like that.
Absolutely,
The
yeah.
menu absolutely would go in there. So
I had a question. So it's 2 hours and 7 minutes, which surprised me the length.
Yeah.
Because I can only imagine how much dialogue is in this.
Yeah.
How much what's the percentage of wine, whether it be wine on screen or dialogue about wine? Like that's my question.
I mean, probably a very good 70%.
We're in.
It is.
See, that makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is that in the setting, but these romantic interests, they care about wine. They deeply
like
care
everyone
about
cares about wine except for maybe Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He's there for other means.
Right.
But mainly to have his bachelor party and not be around, wine nerds.
Right.
It's interesting because again, there's times that it's trying to poke fun at, the techniques of that you have wine tasting, commenting on the notes and putting it up to your ear or some shit like that.
Right.
But at other times, it's through this that, again, I feel like there is almost a genuine love letter towards wine that the writers of the script, Alexander Payne being one of them, I believe this might have been a novel originally.
Yes, it was. Yep.
Yeah. But there's just an authenticity that is achieved through it that I think it fits both roles as making fun of it, but also being a very good love letter to any type of wine enthusiast. It's interesting. One area that I didn't see a lot of praise for was actually the soundtrack by Rolf Kent. Mm-hmm. While it at first kind of sounded like this very generic, edgeless, smooth jazz, it actually has a pretty interesting design to incorporate a theme throughout all the songs. It almost felt like the wobbly drunk of Giamatti's character, and getting more chaotic towards the end. So it creates a unique experience. I think for me, this was a perfect example of why in my review process I've been listening to the soundtracks to isolate those qualities.
I think that's great. I think that's really great.
Yeah, and in the moment, I'm so focused on the dialogue. I'm so focused on the comedy and the drama of the film. I really wasn't picking up on that the first time, so I was glad to kind of isolate that because it was interesting to see that he's interweaving these things.
Okay,
or the themes of it. I'll say I'm a bit surprised of all the Oscar nominations. I'm not trying to knock the film, but it's got great performances. I did not see the immense praise that it got. I just didn't think it was Oscar material in a lot of ways. Maybe for like something like adapted screenplay, sure.
Right.
Just because, again, this being based off a novel. But that's where we go back to the beginning. Possibly in researching this, there was a little bit of overhype. I kind of fell victim to the expectation of the film. Again, not knocking it. It's a very good film and a fun, romantic comedy that kind of turns into a drama. Yeah, it didn't connect the dots for me, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it just wasn't holding up to the way it was back then, or for whatever reason, the praise it was getting.
Sure.
Sure. I mean, we're watching 20 years later.
Right.
Just about.
Yeah. I feel Sideways, honestly, is a bit Woody Allen-ish. It's kind of taking immature concepts like a bachelor party to hook up, and pairs them with a highbrow script. In this case, wine country with aficionados. Folks, I think in addition to a wine enthusiast crowd that may enjoy this, if you're craving a bit more of a kind of a melancholy or a highbrow rom-com, I think this is the shot that you want to give it. And I will be happy to give Payne another watch as a director because he's got plenty to go, and this is the first film that I've ever seen of his. So we're going to go ahead and give Sideways a 73.
73, that's a pretty good score.
Oh, yeah.
And my biggest things was, how did the film look? Did it seem like a low-budget kind of indie film for 2004? Or like how was the camera work? Did it look like it could have been, you know what I mean?
Maybe nothing notable beyond just being kind of just a rom-com,
Okay.
Not that it's shot like a TV show, but I wasn't really getting a lot of, creative cinematography or anything like that.
Yeah, and Alexander Payne also did Election and then About Schmidt before this.
Yep.
Man, I don't know if I know really what Election is or what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he goes on to do Downsizing. Not that I even saw that film, and I guess that film gets some flack for some reason, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see if we return to Payne. We'll see.
73 for Sideways, though. Still, I mean, that's a pretty good score.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you mean. Where maybe not. It's so electric of what it was getting back then.
Right. It's not a 96. It's a very good. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I feel like maybe a little bit guilt when I have to kind of knock a movie like that, but I feel like there is some value in measuring that expectation.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, of course,
just
absolutely.
how I was kind of a little bit by saying, well, what am I not seeing, and kind of over diving into it.
Yeah, 100%, because people are going to be watching it in the here and now, and that's our thing. That's our motto. So, all right, 73 for Sideways, still a good movie. We don't want people to get the wrong idea. 73 is still a good movie,
Absolutely.
So probably a good watch. And just like you said, if you enjoy Giamatti, which was the big selling point for me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's on the
for sure.
Yeah, it's on the watch
list.
list.
You ever watch what's the historical one? Does he? He's not Patton. He's
13 Years a Slave or 12 Years a Slave.
No. He does a TV series. Is it?
Oh yes, Adams. John Adams.
John Adams. Is he good in that? Do you ever see that?
Of course, he's good in that. Yeah. I watched that somewhat recently.
Yeah.
It's relatively good.
Okay.
It's relatively good. Okay, so moving on. Now we're going to our three films here. We're going to start with back in 2015. This is Creed, belonging into the Rocky kind of world. How do we set this up so many years later? I feel like a lot of people might know about it, but some of these details. We have Stallone back, but more as a father figure, mentor. Right, exactly. It's trainer. So let's just get into it right away. We'll jump in with the very first Creed back in 2015. What are we getting? What's our setup here for our next 3 films, too?
Sure. So our setup is basically getting Creed into his first fight. That really is the objective of the film. With the last Rocky movie coming out in 2006, there's nearly a 10-year gap that gives us our franchise reboot, essentially.
Oh, yes.
This is the second out of 3 films Ryan Coogler partners with Michael B. Jordan over, the first being 2013's Fruitvale Station, and the last being, of course, the first Black Panther. I gotta say, Michael B. Jordan is definitely the highlight across all of these films. He's very good in the role. He clearly is thriving working with Coogler, and his physique and physical performance is phenomenal. He is absolutely ripped in all of these films. So much so that, like, when the stereotypical Rocky training sequence comes along, I kind of was saying, like, for what reason? He's already what more can he do?
He's already trained up, it looks like.
Yeah, he's already cut. So, but my praise here is something I haven't really talked about in a little bit, is that there's some immediate star power on screen when you see him come out in the ring or anything like that. I think that star power really goes a long way to show why Creed is still going as far as a franchise.
Yeah, I think it's important too for this. When you're making a new kind of film franchise within a franchise already, it's important to really come out of the bag where you have that celebrity about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have Stallone kind of taking a second part here, you want your main guy to be like, just ooze cool confidence. You want him to control the screen.
He's got to be a frontman.
Exactly, yeah.
This story introduces us to Adonis Creed, son of Apollo Creed, a legend in the Rocky franchise and the Rocky universe. And by the nature of this being a series sequel, we're going to have to kind of live in all 3 of these reviews in a semi-big spoiler for Rocky IV specifically, in that... I'll give a half second, folks. I don't do spoilers, so I'm new at this. In that Apollo passes away in the ring in Rocky IV. This leaves some big shoes to fill and also gives us a slew of characters to pick up Adonis and kind of guide him into walking his father's past. As far as characterization, though, I really felt this was a little bit muddy. Creed comes from a rough upbringing, yet is afforded to live in total luxury with his mother. I mean, he really has like full mansion, brand new car, job in finance. And I mean, I'm not saying that those things are, what he wants to do as a character. Clearly he wants to box. Clearly he wants to live up to the legend of his father. And clearly he's also a fighter in his genes. But when he finally turns away from that, the struggle to break into fighting is just him throwing away opportunities, and it just feels a little weak as far as stakes for a character. Why a character really needs to succeed. Why are we caring about this character?
Yeah, there's something to the original Rockies where he's coming from nothing.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah.
And it helps formulate a character that you want to like be behind.
Exactly. Now, Creed starts as kind of a little bit of a misfit. He's in like a group home. But his mother takes care of him from a very young age, and again, he's in a literal mansion. So, again, I'm not trying to knock the kind of opportunities to it, but I understand his desire to fight. But I feel like the tone and the start of the film are very weak. The stakes for Creed to be pushed into the world of boxing are light, and his drive is only because he sees it as destiny. Obviously, that's a lot of movies going after destiny, but it just wasn't quite there for me, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Stallone, however, has a huge impact on the story because he's goddamn Rocky. He kind of evolves into this mentorship and brings some spikes of drama that are needed to tell a good story, and covers a bit of those weak spots with stakes with Adonis directly. And luckily, I can say that this is a good story. Rocky growing from a mentor to a father figure for Creed is very heartwarming, and in my opinion, really stands as a greater closing note than even 2006's Rocky Balboa. I feel like this has a better concluding arc than even some of the soured ending of Rocky Balboa. Some editing notes. Been a while since I talked about editing. Fighters have their own stat cards kind of populated next to them.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. There's some freeze frames that lets you read the stat card. It's a little busy visually.
Right.
It's just like you're really like, wait, how many knockouts? How many? So it's I don't know. It's a bit sloppy as well with the freeze frame, but I like it. It's cool.
A little stylized.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's something
it's a
different.
little stylized. Yeah. Cinematography and fight choreography, I would say, are pretty standard. Some decent slow-mo. It's going to be a while until we see some unique aspect to that cinematography, but however, there is really something to be said about placing this in the modern world of boxing, whether it is the many HBO logos to modern boxing commentators to Michael Buffer saying, let's get ready to rumble, There's a serious effort to bring this into a modern feel, and I think that once again kind of separates from Rocky, if that makes sense.
I think so. I was going to ask, do you think it's necessary? Because I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, it might as well just be Rocky 7. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly right.
And the story being, well, Rocky's now a mentor, and he's and Creed's just another fighter.
Right. So
I think there's some differences visually that need to happen.
And speaking of that separation with Creed and Rocky, again, I'll ask about percentages of how much are we getting of Michael, how much are we getting of Stallone? Like, do we only get Stallone when he's with Michael B. Jordan?
No, I would say it's 50-50.
Okay.
Because this is, not in a terrible way, but this is really trying to be a nostalgia film for Rocky fans.
Okay.
I don't know if the studio felt, or Coogler as a director felt he had to do that to get people buying in on this.
You can almost look at it as the bridge film.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very good passing of the torch then.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
One thing I actually really enjoyed was a lot of Philadelphia authenticity to this. It has some good beats to it. I really enjoyed the shout out to Johnny Brenda's as a venue, especially with how much I've spent time there, and immediately recognized it on screen. Also, the explanation of the slang term "John" was really great as well. It like brought a very big smile to my face. So I enjoyed a lot of that. When I come to this film, critical reception, once again, a little bit of a theme of this week is huge. 82 on Meta, 95 on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, 95.
Yeah, I mean,
you sure about that? You sure? And I'm not quite sure if that is for Rocky nostalgia. I don't know if at the time, 2015, while these reviews are coming out, if people are just elated with how true to Rocky this is, despite being a new franchise, being the bridge for it.
I don't know what it was. It definitely punched when it came out. I mean, not to you know what I mean, but it was a relatively large deal when it came out.
Yeah,
and it could have been part hype. It could have been part because it maybe it is just a pretty decent movie. Yeah, and the fact that we're getting this passing of the torch film, this bridge film, it seems like a lot of things were done correctly.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought it was really good. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was incredible. I think for me, it just doesn't reach those heights that I think was an expectation. That this is not only one of the best films of the Rocky franchise, but maybe by those ratings, the best Rocky film. And I was just like, I was trying to wrap my head around how that could be the case.
Right.
When a film is so tied down, so chained down to the nostalgia of Rocky, I think it was done well. I don't think it was like in these tasteless Easter eggs or anything like that, but it's attached at the hip to Rocky. It'll take a bit more for Creed's arc to be super compelling for me, and even more for him to fly on his own. We're going to go ahead and give Creed 1 a 70 on the dot.
70 on the dot. Okay.
A very good movie, but again, maybe expectations were a little bit higher than what I actually experienced.
I'm almost surprised that you went in with large expectations.
Yeah,
I would go because you and I are not the biggest Rocky.
True,
we just don't care all too much.
Exactly.
So I know Creed. Like I wasn't someone to be excited about Creed or it becoming its own little mini franchise within the franchise.
Right.
It just wasn't on my radar too much.
Yeah.
That being said, I know the hype around it and everything like that, and 70% still isn't bad. But around this time, is this when we're getting? Was it Warrior? Or what boxing film where you love the cinematography? Where you love the shots?
That's In Full Bloom.
In Full Bloom.
Yes. And I think that's 2019.
Okay, so we're kind of around this era.
Yeah. And I'll actually mention In Full Bloom in one of these reviews. But it's not two. All I want out of boxing films is two sides of the same coin. Good fight choreography,
Absolutely.
like any action movie.
Yep.
and an interesting way to film inside the ring where, I'm sorry, I mean, there's only so many ways you can film inside the ring.
Yes.
So bring a new voice to how that looks.
It's tough when we have had so many great boxing films. You want to talk about On the Shoulders of Giants, it's almost like if you're going to do something, it's already
right.
You're pigeonholed of doing it in a way that's probably already been done already.
Yeah, absolutely.
But regardless, that was Creed with a 78%. Let's see if it goes from here. This is now 3 years later. This is Creed 2. Ryan Coogler still heavily involved, but not directing. This is now Stephen Capel Jr. directing.
Yes.
And like I said, Coogler and his brother are involved in other ways, producing, things like that.
Okay.
I think they might be on the writing team as well for 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, and in fact, the Coogler he's involved very heavily with 3 as well.
Oh,
so he was always in there. I'm sure him and Michael B. Jordan were always in discussions and talks with each other.
Sure.
Michael B. Jordan is now executive producer here.
Yep.
It's like I said, the Cooglers are still producing and all that. I think his wife or something executive produces 3. They're all over the place. Their hands are all over the place. So there's definitely a team aspect there. But again, 2018, Creed 2, Stephen Capel Jr. directing, which we don't have too much from. Mm-hmm. How did this fare? How did we come back in this?
Yeah, honestly, it's real simple, Tom.
Okay.
Not as simple as Weird Science, but still real simple. We continue with the journey of Creed living up to his father's legend. This time, however, ghosts from Rocky's past come to challenge Creed in an even more nostalgia-fueled sequel. Ivan Drago of Rocky IV, the man who killed Creed's father in the first place, now has a son of his own looking to fight against Creed. I'll be honest, if I had to give an elevator pitch for Creed, that's probably what I would pitch.
I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good.
But it's really all in the execution. This is a real droll film. This is real slow, very melancholy, very sad. And honestly, if we're going to compare this to what it's paying homage to, which is Rocky IV.
Right.
Rocky IV is not the super sad story that, earlier Rockies were, where Stallone is really beaten down or anything like that. Rocky IV is like the super 80s affair that has Ivan Drago in it. This is where we get like the winter training sequence and whatnot,
right.
And like the Russian lab that he's hooked up to as he's. So I feel like there's just a mismatch. They tried to go for kind of a more of an emotional story, and it just doesn't hit well. This director swap is, I think, part of the reason. Stephen Capel Jr., who doesn't have a huge track record, I think maybe plays into some of this tone. But to your point, Tom, I mean, maybe it's also a lot of what producers were having their hands in this. And not necessarily in a bad way, but maybe a little bit of a confused tone comes out with this kind of confused result of the film. We'll be returning with Capel Jr. For the newest Transformers movie. God help me.
Hey, okay.
Transformers Beast Wars. You remember Beast Wars? No? Okay. All right. We'll return to that. Surprisingly, like I said, the story drags a lot here, despite more personal stakes than ever. I mean, Creed's going up against, basically the lineage that killed his father and created the ripple effect.
Yeah, I love the premise. I really do.
It's taken in such a slow, grinding way. Like I said, if I was to cook up an elevator pitch, this would 100% be it. You just basically track back the lore of what happened to Creed's father, basically.
Yeah, if you want to really jumpstart Michael B. Jordan, have him take this by the reins, but we're still getting the Rocky fans are going to be happy because we're getting serious Rocky nuggets.
Yep, absolutely.
Lineages are still around and everything like that.
Yep.
So you would want it to be action-packed. You would want it to go.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the get-go.
Yeah. If anything, be a little bit more cartoonish, like Rocky IV was.
And just be bad at
Yeah. Instead, it goes for this very emotional, very personal tone to it, which again is not bad, but I'll get into where I think it's in conflict with it. Michael B. Jordan's performance is more reflective and a bit depressed by the pressure caused by this haunting history in Drago as an adversary. This is shown through a lot more solitary scenes where Creed is just kind of processing the borderline surreal challenge of fighting who was basically responsible for his father's death. So there's an interesting tone there, but I feel it's to the film's detriment. It's just pulling teeth the whole time. I think my issue with the film is that this increased emotion, it just kind of wallows in it a little bit too long. Everyone has issues as a result of Drago coming back, and it's apparent that these struggles aren't meant to be solved in the ring. The somberness feels weak, especially since we know and we want the fight to come.
Yeah.
So when we're dealing with these trauma issues. Everyone's got trauma. Drago's got trauma. He's got like mommy issues. It's just like, well, clearly the answer maybe isn't fighting this time, but it's still a Creed movie. It's still a Rocky movie. So we have to fit into the mold. And that's why I feel like it's not that I don't like sad movies. I just feel like the somber tone was just a mismatch for what ultimately has to be the conclusion or what ultimately has to be the final act of any of these films, which is a title match.
Or pick and choose where you have those moments.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, because Stallone is all over this film again.
Yeah.
So if there's going to be sad moments, I'm fine with that, but you can't have it carry through. So It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it's almost like... Even literally take like a Top Gun Maverick,
where
okay, we'll have our Iceman moment where we actually see Tom Cruise get emotional, but it like come and goes, boom, you're gone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it hits, it's effective, but then we have what the people want for the most of the film.
Scene,
yeah,
the beach scene.
I was gonna say the good action. But yeah, you don't want to see 2 hours and 10 minutes of sad or morosing, or that's the right word. Yeah,
exactly. So, I'll give credit to Michael B. Jordan's acting here. Also showing vulnerability in this role. Not something that I can really assume, especially with this being so macho, coming off of a Rocky franchise. But honestly, it just ties us down to even more nostalgia bake for the Rocky franchise, and whereby the second film, Creed needs to spread his own wings. Yeah. This needs to be his franchise, almost to the point that Rocky really needs to take a back seat, even by the second one. I
think this is where, if we're gonna see Stallone, it should only be on screen. Supporting Michael B.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where I would almost admit, though I would have the same exact feelings that this would be almost a perfect sequel to come up with as far as a writer's room. I would say my assumption and the assumption here is wrong, because in execution, it links us. It chains us down to more Rocky lore, more Rocky history, where it's got to be his own show. It's got to be Creed.
Yeah,
it's called Creed.
It's really like plot mathematics.
Yeah.
It's kind of how we're approaching this a little bit. But it needs to be, I mean, this is technically what, film 6 in this franchise and everything like that?
This would be film 8. Because 6 Rockies, Creed.
That's right. Right. Oh my God.
I know. well, Rocky Balboa doesn't help. It's technically,
right.
But
I totally get. I think you summed it up perfect, which is he needs to spread his wings.
Yeah, he needs to. I also think as a sequel, it's a lot of been there, done that, especially in fight choreography and presentation of fighting in the ring. Nothing new really excites me here, and most of the fights felt like they were going just through the motions, not bad, but bland. I think this is perfectly shown in Drago's son, which could have been such a bombastic character in his father's legacy, but instead they throw more trauma his way. Again, he has like these mommy issues. It's like, all right. and as a result, loses some of that cartoonish simplicity that was what was so great about Drago in the first place. Drago wasn't good because he had emotional depth. It was because he was a Russian robot, basically.
Right.
And an unstoppable one in the ring. The execution here is in conflict, or maybe even forgetting what type of movie Rocky IV really was, late in the saga of Rocky, kind of pulling some strings. I was surprised with how little this film improves upon, though, and how electric the premise sounds, but isn't. Believe it or not, I feel very similar to how I felt about Black Panther 2 here, not even just connecting that to Coogler directing. It's not that I dislike the sad tone. I love sad and miserable movies. Believe me.
And boxing can sometimes be those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or something around boxing.
That's why I like Raging Bull. It's a very miserable film.
Raging Bull, I mean... what's the one with Clint Eastwood and
$1 Million Baby?
Really not the happiest story there.
Definitely not. But so I really like when movies are sad. Believe me, my default is kill my characters. Don't give me the bow on top. Give me the villain.
Right.
I want it all bad. But I just feel that that emphasis, I just feel that the somber tone is too shallow for the blockbuster shell of the film. And that is driven home when the ending morphs into what the franchise needs it to be, regardless of what the momentum of the story was. We're going to go ahead and give Creed 2 a 51.
Okay, 51. Definitely taking a drop off here.
Definitely taking a drop.
Interesting.
We should get a Tommy Two Shoes predict.
I'm not
bet.
I'm
maybe.
I'm not too surprised by this. I'm not too surprised by this. Yeah, it's almost like it could be the awkward middle child too.
Yeah,
in this trilogy that we're kind of getting, this Creed trilogy. So before we get into it more, we'll just take a break here to remind people, hey, we're going off the value for value model. Are you finding the podcast valuable? Are you checking out the website lately? That's growing and growing. If you could, go to thedailyratings.com. You go to the donations tab, and you go ahead and give us back some value with monetary support. Any amount that you want, whether it's our set donations or our subscriptions, or it's a number that you want to pick. You go ahead, send that in our way. You write it in a note, and then we'll read it here, whether it's a question, comment, whatever.
Critique.
And we're here to have that open dialogue with you, kind of. It's a great way to do it. So again, so dailyratings.com, go to the donations tab, and show us what value you're getting from the show.
And even just with writing in, like I said, there was such genuine joy to hear that producer Sean was, watching along, like a book club, basically. That's kind of what I want.
Yeah, it would be great to get some perspective on those big. We got some Rocky fans out there, you know what I mean? Like we are, especially for being in the Philly area.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're definitely in a little bit of an outlier, I would say,
yeah.
without having extreme love for these films.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And by the way, folks, at the bottom of the website, we have there's a little newsletter section that you can sign up for a newsletter. Put your name in, put your email address in. In a few weeks, we're going to be having a weekly newsletter that comes out.
Yep.
And I subscribe to newsletters. I subscribe to a lot of newsletters that I don't ever touch. I understand how miserable, or not miserable. I understand how pointless and useless it can be.
Sure.
I understand how most newsletters' jobs are to get money or clicks out of you. I understand that they're just trying to sell you stuff within the newsletter. This is not this. What we're going to do is we'll give you some major news of the week as far as film industry news. We'll give you the latest box office stuff, kind of the top 5 films and everything like that. How are the latest films doing? And then we also have some other fun things in there. We have some random stuff. Some other just kind of fun, weird little film things that you might want to check out. And these are just stories that I kind of come across or see, and I think you all would enjoy.
Yep.
We wanted to come out on Mondays, and it's kind of would be a great way to start your Monday morning.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's on the phone when you're going to the bathroom every Monday morning, it might give you a smile. It might put a smirk on your face, but
get you excited for the podcast episode this week.
Yeah, we'll do what we did last year and everything like that. Like, what podcast did we do this week of last year?
Yeah.
So it's not all repurposed content, which is nice. It's new stuff, it's stories, and it's fun stuff that you might just want to check out. So that's going to be coming out in about 3 weeks. Again, if you just want to get signed up for it now, it's at the bottom of the website of any page, and you can just put in your name. We don't ask for all your information. You're not going to get random emails from us. You're not going to get random ads. We're also not. The one thing I noticed about these newsletter stuff, it's just like, man, people are such assholes with their newsletters.
Really?
Yeah.
Or, what, like manipulative or?
Absolutely manipulative. And even just to get you to sign up, they have the thing where like if it tracks your mouse. So if your mouse goes towards the back button or to exit something out, that's when the people's, hey, sign up for our newsletter comes up.
Yep.
Like that kind of stuff. It's just like, hey, get away from me. We put it at the bottom of the website. If you're interested, check it out.
Exactly.
Vin and I have been going through some mock-ups, and we think it's a good product.
Yeah.
Again, we're slowly trying to add value to this, and it's a lot of work for just 2 guys. So if you are getting value, we appreciate the send back, but it's just going to be something we're going to be adding. We think it's going to put some smiles on your guys' faces.
Exactly. And a different approach to it. Just how like, value for value as a process with us working with you producers and listeners is different than like a Patreon. We don't want the status quo as far as with anything that we do, website, newsletter, really anything that we touch.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
Bring kind of a unique perspective to it.
So anyway, so you can sign up for that. I'll let you know again in the weeks to come here. Like I said, we're hoping maybe 3 weeks or something like that a month. It's going to be that weekly thing coming to you on Mondays. But anyway, regardless, moving on. This is 2013. So we took a 5-year gap from the Creed movies. This is Creed 3.
2023. 2013.
What did I say? 2013. 2020. 2023. It's an hour and 56. It's our shortest Creed movie. Michael B. Jordan now directing.
Yeah.
But the Coogler's now writing.
Oh.
And as well as producing.
Wow.
So you have Keenan Coogler, and then you have Ryan Coogler.
Yep.
Writing it, producing it. Again, there's like Kizzy Coogler also executive producing it.
Interesting. Well, clearly, Michael B. Jordan is being inspired by his friend, probably at this point.
Yeah, I would say
to enter into directing.
Yes, and although Stallone really isn't anywhere to be seen on this film, he's producing it as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
it's baby.
All right, Vince. So Creed 3. How did we like it? What did you think?
I actually liked this movie a lot. Wow. I think Michael B. Jordan is a breath of fresh air when it comes to the tone of this film, how this is filmed, how the story unfolds. I think Michael B. Jordan alone directing might be reason enough to check this out. So a big surprise, because I saw that and I said, oh, he's basically just doing what Sly Stallone did. He's going to go in and directing his own films. I don't know if that's exactly a recipe for success, when there's someone directing and acting in it.
Right. I'm already very surprised at your reaction here.
Believe me, I was surprised too. Coming off of 2, I thought this was going to be another, somber, especially in, the wake of Top Gun Maverick or whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
Oddly enough, Sly Stone is missing from this production without there being any story explanation of his absence. I got to say, though, folks, it is a great thing, because Creed is finally able to spread his own wings in his own film, free of the nostalgia baggage. And I really think, in combination with a little bit of a fresh air with the tone and the style and kind of a I don't know, I don't want to say youthful or anything like that, but there's a fresh,
new energy. There's new
energy here. It's not just guess what, we're the Rocky film. It feels on its own finally. Hey, maybe that's just a byproduct of Michael B. Jordan, It's his film. He's the main character. Maybe he's able to kind of bring a different approach to it.
And hey, who knows? Are we going to have 6 Creeds? Then it makes sense that we might have a 2-movie passing of the torch.
Yep.
I think there was one interview that Stallone had where he was asked, "You gonna be in it? You gonna be in it?" He's just like, "Oh, I don't think I'm gonna." I don't know if things behind the scenes were a little rocky.
You did
legitimately. I'm almost upset with myself.
I saw his eyes roll back into the out to outer space.
Terrible. Very lackluster.
Very.
But anyway, I think there might have been some behind the scenes stuff that was going on, or some tension a little bit. It's why I was kind of surprised that Stallone was still in as a main producer.
Sure.
I don't know the full backstory on it, but that's good that he was left alone here for Creed 3.
And maybe it's a little bit of an anomaly, because there's I could have missed it, but I don't think there was a single even line of dialogue be like, "Hey, where's Rocky?"
Was Rocky mentioned? Because we're still dealing with some nugget.
No, not really, not at all. And again, a good thing.
Not bad.
Get it, kick him out. So, this story tells the relative blind spot in Creed's upbringing, specifically during those kind of group home days before his mother takes him in, and bringing in a childhood friend named Damian Anderson that gets caught up in the law and basically goes a separate path. The setup here is a little odd for the timeline. I'm not going to really stress over it too much, but the timeline in this blind spot is a little bit odd. Again, at the point that they're covering in Creed's life, he's in a mansion with his mother on Papa Creed's dime. So I just don't think the timeline matches up a little bit too much with the drama, but just a side note. I'm not going to nitpick it too much. We jump way forward in Creed's life for the plot, and to the point that he has hung up the gloves, actually, and is now in more of a kind of a coach-producer type of role, kind of similar to Michael B. Jordan as well. Echoes it. And it's only when Dame returns does this blind spot get illuminated for everyone around him, to Creed's dismay. Creed really wants to keep things under wraps, and there's a lot of secrets to this film. I feel like that's another important ingredient to keep us interested. The cards aren't all on the table. I'm not going to try not to rip into Creed 2 as much as possible, but I think, again, another problem with that is just the drama is laid out so clear cut. There's nothing to piece together. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Work for us to do, you know, kind of piecing the story together. So I have to say, I really enjoyed Jordan's directing here. I thought he did a great job. And like I said, a breath of fresh air for the series. Most notably is cinematography, and it is great, especially within the ring. There is a very creative tracking to fighters inside the boxing ring. And the camera almost has like a bob or a bounce to the springboard of the ring itself, of the boxing ring. I really, really loved it. I thought it was such a creative look to the film. I have suspicions this is utilizing some new kind of hyperspeed mechanical arm tech that is going out there. Tom, you might have seen this on some red carpet videos that are going around where it's like this hyper fast zoom.
Interesting. Okay. I don't not the red carpet stuff. Not into
he's
that.
not paying attention. I don't know. Maybe you came across it.
But that's very interesting. If it works in film, that's great. The funny thing is we're dealing with the same cinematographer as Creed 2.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's why I don't think it's revolutionary in the camera tech itself. I think it's just the approach. And again, just a suspicion that it's utilizing that mechanical arm. There was also another, when this technology was just coming out, that this mechanical arm was used in one of the John Wicks for sword fights because it kind of, it's hyper speed that it can whip around. Either way, I was in love with some of these shots. It created an extra level of excitement that, in addition to me paying attention to the stakes, I was very excited to see how are we going to see this fight portrayed in the ring. I was actually, looking forward to each fight as they were coming up in the story, which I think, again, it sounds easy. Sounds like,
but it's not. It's not at all.
A given. Yeah. So.
And the fact that we're breaking through on the third film, I think, is kind of impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Most of all, Jonathan Majors does a great job as the antagonist here. It really occurred to me when I was thinking back to the Rocky movies, and again, maybe I should have watched them all, honestly. Maybe I should have just, killed myself and watched all the Rockies. When you summarize those films, it's just like, oh, that's when he fights Drago, or that's when he fights Mr. T.
Sure. Yeah.
The two Creed movies were missing that. We're missing that electricity. Finally, Jonathan Majors brings that back. It takes us a while to see why he is dangerous, but his first real fight sells a great villain, and easily my favorite role I've seen him in so far.
And we just saw him too.
Right.
That's Kane the Conqueror.
Kang, yeah. I kid you not, I was getting some almost Cape Fear vibes from this, on how menacing his character is and how it unfolds, how much he's up to speed on Creed and his life and whatnot. Very cool. And we finally get that villain that defines the movie, like we've had in the entire Rocky series, but not present in either of the Creed movies. And that leads me to my question I was asking the whole time. Where the hell was this with Kang? Where was this menacing? Yeah. Where was this mastermind? But we'll see. He's got some more runway. He's got almost infinite runway for this.
Kane the Conqueror would have been a great boxer name, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it would have been solid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Dame is a solid character, though, a reckless ghost from his past that hits Creed exactly where I critiqued him in the first film. I personally love how Creed's privilege and opportunities are examined in the film and countered by making his adversary, not necessarily Dame, his adversary for most of the film is a self-doubt, kind of questioning whether he belongs where he stands now. And I thought that was just such a better way to craft a villain rather than be like, oh, you remember your dad?
Right.
You remember what they did to your dad? It's so much more true to Adonis Creed as his own character, as his own franchise, I'll say this, the final fight is almost amazing. I really love this. Some very unique fight choreography here, and surprised at the presentation of the fight as well. This is where I put in the notes In Full Bloom. Much like when we touched on In Full Bloom, this had a new voice to bring to filming a boxing match. And if you go back to my review, how many episodes was that? That was
a while. That was an early ep.
Yeah. That was like maybe 20s or something like that.
Yeah, or before.
Yeah. But my praise was very similar. It was just bring something new. It doesn't even have to be great. Just bring something new.
Sure.
In an endless landscape of how boxing is, and boxing in real life as well. I will end with a little bit of my hot take. Rocky not appearing in this was the best thing to happen to this film. You know, I like Stallone just fine. Folks, I will not bore you with my Sly Stallone impression. I won't try it. But Creed needed to be on the top with no father figure if his adversary was going to try to take the crown. There couldn't be another thing above Creed if he's going to be the top.
Sure.
And, you know, like it or not, Rocky really was over Creed. He had, you know, a legend in his corner, a legend that stood above the legend.
Way too much of a presence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So having that separated is important for the adversary working in Jonathan Majors, and again, I can't stress enough, the whole thing working for Creed and his own franchise. On paper, this concept isn't too different than Creed 2, with a ghost from his past coming back to haunt him, but in execution could not have been more different, because it's not Apollo's fight, it's not Rocky's fight, it's Creed's fight, defining why Adonis is the new legend. We're going to go ahead and give Creed 3 a well-deserved 77.
Okay, 77, very good.
Yeah, solid movie. I was
definitely surprised at that.
Oh, yeah.
And a healthy surprise, like a good surprise.
Very happy to have it. Because,
did you see this in a good theater?
Yeah.
Good.
You're always checking on which theater. You see his IMAX? You see his Dolby? No, yeah, that's right. You're always in the Dolby.
I'm a Dolby guy. That's great to hear, though. I think we have some very much reoccurring characters in these three films. We have Tessa Thomas as kind of his love interest.
Yep.
Wood Harris is constantly in as Tony Little Duke Burton.
Yep.
His mom, Marianne Creed. Are we getting good side performances here? Are we getting supporting characters?
And actually, I'll give a little bit of shout out just how my praise of Michael B. Jordan's star power across the board of all these three films were good. Tessa Thompson was really good as well. She plays an interesting character that has her own trials a little bit with going partially deaf.
Oh, interesting.
Which is kind of, at first I was like, what is this? Why
do we need this?
Yeah, but it honestly is used in a good way, and it also can't be 100% fights all the time, bottom line.
Sure.
There's got to be something. There's got to be a little bit of drama at home, basically.
Okay, very good. All right, so folks, 77 on Creed 3. Do not sleep on it.
Do not
Be a
sleep.
great theater watch. It's doing pretty well in the theaters, which is great.
Yep.
I'm really happy to see that March now, we're starting to kick off in some movies, and things are starting to do well.
Yeah.
I feel like this is looking better than last year as far as, you know, ticket sales and people going to the theaters and having that cinema experience again.
Yeah.
It's a good sign as well. All right, Vin. So is there anything else you'd like to add here? We're going to roll credits.
I had one observation I wanted to
roll
by
go for
you.
it.
So there was an announcement of Jake Gyllenhaal starring in a Roadhouse remake. Roadhouse is an old film from the 80s with Patrick Swayze. In addition to kind of some interesting guerrilla marketing with that, he came out to an MMA weigh-in, like an actual fighter. So
yes, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
he's definitely in the news this week about that. Yeah.
And pretty ripped, pretty jacked.
Mm-hmm.
So good on him. That's not what I'm curious about, though. What I'm curious is that what ripple effect will we have from Top Gun Maverick? Are we about to see a tidal wave of 80s remakes? It's like Interstellar, like when they're on the water planet and they're like, oh, those are mountains, but it's actually a wave. Are we seeing the seeing the 80s wave come at us?
I thought you were going to say something different with Interstellar, okay. Are we going to see I love the thought there. I love the thought. Are we going to get some of these, what else can you think of, though, when the 80s was lackluster?
I don't know.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's got to be well, I'll tell you this. There's got to be plenty, because one thing I would never think that they would retouch again is Roadhouse.
Exactly.
And, oh my God, what the big question that is in the hat that we're going to have to pull out is, what kind of performance is Jake Gyllenhaal going to do?
Oh, yeah. So
you know what I mean?
I don't think
we're going to get ambulance, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Or are we going to get prisoners and good Gyllenhaal?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a very good question.
That's a big question.
I know.
He's
such a weird actor. He's all over the map.
He's all over the place. But I love the question. I think if we get one more, we'll see. There's things in the water that you've seen before that didn't turn into big waves.
Very true.
The big thing was religious movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if Noah was a hit, we would have seen that continue.
Sure. I think that's
we had
good
Noah. We had a Christian Bale one that was $100 million budget, totally flopped.
Yep.
That came and went. one thing that was successful was the every year big sci-fi film, which seemed to have dropped off the map. But that might have been kicked off with Gravity. Interstellar was in there. The Martian was in there. Arrival. We had this, like, every year we had our space thing. Jake Gyllenhaal was in Life.
Right. The ripoff of Alien.
I love this thought process. I think it's something that we all need to keep our eye on, though.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something making that much of an impact and having that much talk does not. In no way are producers not paying attention to that and saying, "Oh, we got to follow the money." You know what I mean? It's just they're gonna follow the trend, basically.
Yeah, so. I mean, because Maverick was just that good.
Yeah,
just that good. It'll be interesting. I don't know. It's fascinating what's going to happen in the movie industry in the next 3 years. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, we're gonna have like 3 Batmans that we're gonna be taking visuals on.
Oh my God,
I mean, the Batman stuff is crazy.
You're so right.
As you just said, we're bringing up Transformers again. So it's almost like, okay, give me. Sure, Roadhouse 2. It's fine.
Right.
You know, it won't be Thor 5 or 6 or whatever, which we don't need ever.
We'll just get the remakes. I mean, I see, actually, on the thinking of what else may come from this, I would say, a remake of Die Hard is ripe for this, especially before maybe Bruce Willis goes too far gone,
Well, he won't be in it. He is too far gone.
Oh, really?
Well, they just came out and said he's full-blown, I think, diagnosed with dementia now.
Oh,
yeah, it sucks.
Sad. That's
it
sad.
sucks.
Yeah.
Maybe an homage film.
Yeah.
That would be tough to do.
Well, similar to like you said with Iceman and Top Gun, maybe they could do something like that. Final goodbye, but
we'll see. Hey, write in if you have any good 80s that we can't think of.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's
that would be great.
Prompt. Absolutely.
And also, folks, next week I'm going to be giving Vin my birthday movies. So birthday's in early April, so we'll have a few weeks if he wants to watch them or anything like that. But he gets my time, my chance.
He's taking the real.
I'm going to give 4. We have a new release that week, so I'm going to give Vin 4 films. He needs to watch them. The power is, trust me, getting to my head. But I will say I will watch them with you, and I will give them Tommy Two Shoes as well.
That's good. Maybe we do the 5. I mean, maybe we just go for the full. I want to give you the full 5.
Okay, I'll give you my 4. We'll do the definite 4,
and then
and then maybe I'll give you 2, and you get to choose one.
Yeah,
and then that'll be a 6-bagger or something like that for the week. We'll do new release, and you get to choose out of one of those 2 or something like that.
Because honestly, late April's looking a little light. We can kind of push it down the road, get to it.
Well, we'll see. The thing is, we see Super Mario. We know comes out.
Yeah, that is the one. That
would kind of be important. To get the Super Mario Chris Pratt review in there.
I guess.
But regardless, I'll reveal that next week for everybody, and for Vin with fresh ears. He won't know what I picked.
Genuine surprise.
Do I be mean? Do I not? You know what I mean?
Right.
Do I just make my own special on my own? Anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening. Vin, thank you for watching all these films. We will see everyone next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, could you give us a good rating or tell a friend about us? If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, folks, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.